And we continue learning Dirshu Mishna Berurah, concluding Siman Kof Lamed Zayin, the halachas of Kriyas HaTorah. We pick it up from Sif Hey. We do remind that yesterday Sif Dalet had some fine nuances, quite intricate. Probably kedai to reread those words of the Mishnah Berurah, understanding those interesting cases when one by accident reads only two psukim, etc. But for now, we move on to Sif A, in which the Mechaber teaches us. Imkara Parshas Paro Upasak V'Lagera Gar B'Seicham. You read Parshas Paro and you stop at Agera Gar B'Seicham V'Kol Al Sefer Torah. You rolled up the Sefer Torah. What do you have to do? Chayzer U'Paisech. If to open it again, U'Maschem Mereisha Parsha Ad Titma Ad Erev. You start from the beginning of the Parsha and then Mevarech Lefanei L'Achra. So it comes on the Mishnah Berurah really speaking out what exactly is going on over here. So Sefkat in Yudzayin says the Mishnah Berurah, V'Kol Al Sefer Torah, V'Habe Achronim Eskimu, the Gola Lav Davka, says the Mishnah Berurah, quoting Harbe Achronim, and over here the Shartian, interestingly enough, sends us to Shartian Yud Gimel, V'Kol Al Lav Davka, Ela Iker Taloi Bim Birich Bracha Achronim, which is a din that we've seen already. It's not Taloi in the Galila Shabai. It's Taloi, did you make the bracha after the Torah Shanasan Lahanu? Vim loy birich, if you did not, afal bishe gola, let's say for Torah, it's much easier. Chayzer v'kayres ha'moiser b'loy bracha lefanei. And this is really a klal that we have to remember, that any time they roll up the Torah, and then, oh wait, what do we do? Quickly open it and add on what needs to be added on, and do not make that bracha, because once you make the bracha after the Torah, now you're much more hot water. Because once you make that bracha after the Torah, now you potentially have to make a new bracha, which is what gets involved in the bracha, whether you need a bracha, etc. So if you didn't make a bracha, it is much easier. Sivkatan Yudches, so if you did make the bracha, because that's what we're learning, equivalent to Galal, is you made the bracha, what do you have to do? You have to go back to Miroish HaParsha. I apologize, I see that we're having a little bit of a lip sync issue. Let's see if we can fix that. 1 second. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sivkatan Yudches, Miroish HaParsha. Ask the Mishnah Berurah, why? Why can you not just go back to the place that you messed up? Since you did not read the way you were supposed to, it's not called a kriya. If you didn't skip a pasuk, you don't go back. Why? As we've already seen, just like on Yontif, what was the halacha? The halacha was if you messed on Yontif, it's not as big a deal. Why not? Because either way, you're going to read the parsha, whatever comes to Parshas Shvuah. So too says Mishra Parshas Parah. Therefore, calls it dafka. However, calls it dafka. You skipped psukim which are not of the ikr chayv, which of course reminds us back to that which we've learned previously. And you know what? We're just going to turn off the video, as I'm sure it's causing people issues, the lack of synchronization. As we've seen it already, that if you skip the non-integral psukim, it's not as big a deal. As we've seen, from Yontif you skipped Ikr Chayvus Hayom. So now the Mishnah Berurah is extending that to Parshas Parah. There's also an Ikr Chayvus Hayom. Eskim of Al Yarav the Chayzer, which is part of Mishnah Berurah Sivkatin and Alvin Psukei Karban Musaf. And that is what one would have to do, that if you're skipping the Ikr Chayvas, then you're going to have to go back. Says the Mechaber in Sivav, another type of mishap. You read Rishain, and then the guy who gets Levi says Rishain. If he added something on Shleisha Psukim, or maybe even 2 psukim if nothing else possible, then it counts. Vimlav. If he didn't add on, he just repeated from Rishain. Sorry, from the psukim of the Pari Achag, where it's impossible then it would be okay. So we're learning an interesting mistake over here. I mean, I guess every mistake is interesting, that's why they're mistakes. What happens when Levi rereads from Rishon? So says the Mishnah Berurah over here, Sivkatan Yud Tes or Rishon. V'tafka b'di'evet, says Mishnah Berurah. Aval lechatchila kedai shekil ma'afreim ma'apsukim ha'kodim ha'filim yirtz la'is v'aleim kama. Says Mishnah Berurah, don't start getting any ideas. Maybe one's going to read this and think, hey, not such a big deal. As long as I add on, so I can reread the previous aliyah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, no, only b'di'evet does this work. By b'chukaisai, you read 3 psukim before the teichacha. So there was a minhag that the previous aliyah read those psukim, but then the one who got the aliyah for the teichacha would reread those psukim simply because they didn't want the aliyah being only the teichacha. And we'll see the dirshu on that in a moment. Shleisha psukim sivkat al-chaf b'makom she'afshar afilu shnayim sivkat al-chaf aleph aynu she'isiv shnei psukim apasuk echad shekar mima shel-afanef kmo she'anagim b'rosh chodesh ha'levi mascha apasuk shekar ha'koyin v'ina moisav ak shnei psukim. We know we do this every time on Rosh Chodesh. What do? We do the second aliyah, goes back 1 pasuk. Why? Because there's no room in the parasha, so therefore he goes back 1 pasuk, he adds on 2, he gets his 3 psukim, because it's Yavshem. Yavshem bin Nachik, kmo she'isbayer b'elchaz Rosh Chodesh. So now the Mishnah Berurah fills in the details like we just said. Now what's the problem? The problem is that the topic concludes and you don't have anywhere to add on more psukim. It sounds like there's no big deal. Ella, it sounds like it's no big deal. It just doesn't count for the aliyahs. Which again we'll see there, and we'll also see Dirshu in a moment. Revi on Cholamayit goes back to that which was read prior, so that you have an upsugim. Because you can't go back and read something which is not minyanai shel yom. So let's take a moment and look at Dirshu number 23 and 24 over here, in which the Dirshu deals with what do we do on Parshas Bichu Koisai. Apologize, we're just having a little bit of a... Here we go. It says the Dirshu number 23, note number 23. Like the Ramah says, once you start, Tamil Likroi B'Davar Tov. You always want to start leaning by something good. You never want to start by Piranios. Siman Tov Chov Ches, we're going to explain. We're talking about in a place that the Rav Av Bezin Oilish Shlishi, even on Parshas Bichu Koisai. So let's understand what's going on here. Parshas Bichu Koisai is the Teichacha. So we have the Teichacha, which in general is not so chashuv to get. We're dealing with the shul that the minhag is that the Rav, the Av Bezdin, whomever it is, always gets this aliyah, even on Bichu Koisai. The problem is they don't want him to get the Teichacha. So he would get until the beginning of the Teichacha. But in order that the next aliyah doesn't only get the Teichacha, they would start 3 psukim prior. And then they would go and then they would lean into the Teichacha. He adds that it's Nachin that the Rav Shimoichel Kvaidai, and he should get Revi on that Shabbos, and therefore you shouldn't do this. So we see again that in Tov Chav Ches we're going to see how really not ideal this repeating of psukim are, and the Rav should be Meichel on his minhag and not cause the situation by the Teichacha. Finally, we conclude over here with Dirshu number 29, in which he quotes later on, in which he says that the Ramah is Chaylek. The Ramah holds that you have to go back Nagu lesser to go back and read what you already read. Aside for Simchas Torah, when we have many aliyos, and Mishnah Berurah explains Yesh Aimim that even on a Sha'af b'chasana it's mutter, and he says the minhag is lesser b'chasav imatir netzadar elu b'simchas Torah. Shartzian there adds on that for the Magen Avraham it sounds like when there's chiyuvim neisafim ein lo hakel bazeh should not be makel. So again, we just see how important it is not to repeat. And finally, number 30, it said that a Cholamite Sukkot we do go back. And Dirshu over here makes note, what do they do in Eretz Yisrael? It's a totally different Kriya. Tavri Samach Gimel, it says, since there's no Sfeika the Yoma, they give all Arba Aliyah, Rakas and Kriya Shal Oisa Yom, which is startling. Anyone who's ever, first time you're a Cholamite Sukkot in Eretz Yisrael, the Kriya is completely different. They do not go back because there's no Sfeika the Yoma. They don't have to add on the extra day like we do in Chutz La'aretz. Therefore, they just give the Aliyah straight. We'll pick it up for Siman Kuf Lameches the next year, B'siyata Dishmaya.